from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another very important special edition live video update. As you can see, I have none other than Darren Dickson from constitutionwatch.com.au with us. Mate, thank you for making the trek down on this dull and dreary Melbourne evening.
And it's not just the weather that's dreary.
There we go. So, mate, I know you've been doing a ton of research over the last couple of days, and you've uncovered some stuff that I know is going to be of extreme value to all of our viewers out there. So, thank you for joining us on a Monday evening. We're going to get stuck straight into it. Obviously, everybody is aware of the press release that Daniel Andrews put out on Friday, requiring all essential workers, and we're not quite sure what that means, but we'll get into that, that they have to have their first jab by the 15th of October, and then he's put a follow-up there for, I think it is the 25th of November. Now, all of this comes out of the COVID-19 Mandatory Vaccination Directives number 5. So you can do a search for that. You can follow with us online. This is what we're talking about. So you've done the research into that, mate. Tell our viewers what you have uncovered.
Well, after many inquiries over the weekend from Friday onwards, many concerned business owners
absolutely
beside themselves to see that Daniel Andrews had made it mandatory for allegedly every single industry. Now, if you go and look at order number 5, you will see that there are only 4 industries that qualify. They are aged care, medical, construction and education. Now that's on the last page of that particular direction. At this point in time, that's how it stands. There are 4 industries that are only need to be compliant to those directions. Everything else is a bluff at this point.
So what about all this suggestion that retail and bank and police and judges and lawyers and all these other industries? Are you saying it's not actually in the legislation?
It's not. It's not in the legislation. It's not on an order. It's not on a direction. It appears on the DHHS website only. They've been quoting this. There's been many people standing up and coming out and speaking in regards to this. As I said, I've been contacted by a barrage of people, and we've gone in and we've had a look, and there is no obligation. Now, this backs up the ruling of the Fair Work Commission just a week ago.
That right here. Again, for anyone who missed that ruling, there's a copy. You will find a copy of that on our knowyourrightsgroup.com.au website. Just go to the vaccinations page, scroll down to the you cannot be forced or coerced to get the jab section. You'll find a copy of that ruling. But yeah, please continue.
Exactly. There was a woman in New South Wales in an aged care facility. She was I think just a receptionist, and she actually was compelled to get the flu shot. Not the COVID-19 shot, but the flu shot.
Yep.
The Fair Work Commission ruled that she didn't have a case on appeal because it was not her employer compelling her, it was the government. And they said that they would have accepted her appeal and ruled in her favour if it was the employer compelling her to do such things, such as take the mandatory flu jab, because employers have no power to ask you to take a medical procedure. So you need to stand back and look at where the authority is coming from. Is it coming from the employer or is it coming from the government?
Now, this is so important, because if your employer is asking you questions, for example, about your vaccination status, have you had it? Do you intend to get it? Have you booked in for an appointment? Anything like that. There is absolutely no legal framework for them to be asking you those questions whatsoever. They are still 100% protected under that doctor-patient privilege. Now, you've looked through the legislation. Have you found anything that gives an employer some kind of authority over this doctor-patient privilege to ask you these personal, private medical questions?
100% not. In fact, Section 16B of the Privacy Act of the Commonwealth says that when someone asks you, an organisation asks you for personal medical details, they can only do so to facilitate a medical procedure. Ask your employer if they are trying to provide you a medical procedure, because that's all that the Privacy Act allows for. You do not have to give your information otherwise.
So this is so important, people. Now, I know we've been, as you said, we've all received a barrage of emails about this, and it's not about, I want to make this clear, this is not about in any way, shape or form attacking your employer or attacking anyone who's asking these questions of you, but it is about you standing your ground and defending your position and asking them where they get their authority or their claimed authority to be even asking you these questions. Now, this is something that we've covered on radio shows and whatnot before, that even if the employer believes that they have some kind of an obligation to the government for whatever reason, because of these directions or whatever, they cannot pass that obligation on to you as the employee, can they?
Well, what's actually happening, Mike, is that there's no, the employer or the government are not compelling you to take the vaccine. What they're actually doing is they're setting out a particular prohibition to enter the workplace, and it's by qualification, and the qualification is a vaccine. So it's as simple as this. The Commonwealth, for example, do not have the power to regulate medical services whatsoever. The states, as we heard from the New South Wales Premier, do not have the power to mandate vaccination, nor do they have the power to regulate it either. They can only regulate the Department of Health and the services that are provided by health practitioners, but not the patient.
And this is important. Again, I want to remind you, this is the schedule. I urge you, please go and have a look at this. This is the schedule. And as you'll see there, it only talks about facilities. It doesn't say all construction workers, all healthcare workers. It only talks about the facilities. Okay, they know that they do not have the power to legislate in regards to vaccines. Okay, they have no direct power whatsoever. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to weave around this and do it indirectly. And they have no power or authority to do that whatsoever, do they?
100%. And what the Commonwealth cannot do directly, they're getting the states to do indirectly. And what the states can't do directly, they're compelling the employer to do indirectly by providing a caveat to stop you entering the workplace.
Yeah, and they cannot do that. Now, again, I want to make this clear. Go and look this up and confirm this for yourselves, because we've had so many people from, retail, banking, police. We had a police officer contact us just before we went live to air, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so many of these other industries, people are freaking out. Oh, I'm going to lose my job if I don't get the jab. Right now, there is no legislative framework for that. The only ones that need to be at all concerned are from those four industries, which is your construction workers, your healthcare workers, your aged care workers, and your education workers. Now, again, we want to make this clear. We've covered this on previous radio shows, that those directives supposedly come from up high from ScoMo and his wonderful national cabinet, but you've actually done an FOI request yourself asking for the head of power for the creation and the validity of that national cabinet. And what was their response?
Well, 100%. Over a year ago, we did a request, and it came back that there was no power in the Constitution to create a national cabinet. And since then, what we've seen is that national cabinet that they did create beyond the power of the Constitution could not be a national cabinet, because the members of that cabinet were not from the federal government. They were from the state governments. It cannot intrinsically be, by its very nature and foundation, It cannot be a national cabinet. They are passing on and doing indirectly what they cannot do directly. This is a legal maxim, and it is found throughout the High Court precedents of the High Court of Australia.
Absolutely. So again, if you're in one of those 4 affected industries, or you have to go to those one of those 4 facilities, which is aged care, healthcare, construction sites, or teaching facilities, please make sure you educate yourself about this fact that this national cabinet has no head of power. And again, ask anyone, whether it's coming from on high, whether it's just coming from your employer, anyone, if they try and suggest, oh, but this is law, ask them, where is the head of power that gives the national cabinet the ability to make that law? Because again, we've done an FOI request and it simply does not exist. And that is the key. Okay, so please stop freaking out about this whole no jab, no job. They cannot do it. Sure, they might try. Sure, they might push ahead. But there are plenty of tools that you have available to you. We've just covered some. Again, if you go to the knowyourrightsgroup.com.au website, you will find, again, on our COVID and vaccinations page, a ton of completely free information. It includes articles, it includes reports, it includes a list of questions that you can ask your employers about this no jab, no job. Now, you've also got a ton of information on the constitutionwatch.com.au website. What have you got available for people there?
Okay, so there's all the documents that we've just discussed and what we're about to discuss, and also the Fair Work Commission report, or the ruling from a week ago. You need to look at that, because the Fair Work Commissioner said that you need to resist a medical apartheid. Absolutely. And the government and employers are not to be compelling you into forcing these sorts of medical procedures, because, as we know, the doctor-patient relationship is private and it's voluntary and it's by consent. It is your choice. You have bodily autonomy and choice over what you put or don't put within your body.
Absolutely. All right, now we need to keep moving, because you've also done a bit of searching into the Biosecurity Act. So I'm going to pull this up for people. Now, this is the Human Biosecurity Emergency Human Coronavirus with Pandemic Potential Declaration 2020. So there it is there. You can look that up and follow along yourselves. Now, what have you found in regards to that act? There's actually a commentary on it, or an explanatory statement. That's the explanatory statement. And again, if you want to follow along with that, you will find it on Darren's constitutionwatch.com.au website. Now, just a quick point about the websites. We're assuming that we're getting a ton of live views. We're going to be getting a lot of live views as this continues. So please understand that those websites are likely to get hammered with a lot of traffic. So if you can't get on, or it's running slowly for you at the moment, just bear with us. Try again another 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and hopefully it'll come good. But yeah, what do you want to tell everyone about this explanatory statement on the Biosecurity Act 2015?
Okay, so the Human Coronavirus with Pandemic Potential Declaration of 2020 is the empowering document that started off the pandemic. Okay. Now, Section 475 of the Biosecurity Act provides that the Governor-General may declare that a human biosecurity emergency exists only if the Health Minister is satisfied that a listed human disease is posing a severe and immediate threat, or is causing harm to human health on a nationally significant scale, and the declaration is necessary to prevent or control the entry, emergence, establishment, or spread of the disease in Australian territory. Now, it's as simple as this. This declaration ended on September the 17th. It finished. There has been 5 declarations since March. 5 declarations. They were updated every 3 months because the Health Minister compelled the Governor-General, because he was satisfied that there was a severe and immediate threat on Australia in respect of COVID-19, and they have failed to update that particular declaration, And one can only take it that the Health Minister and the Governor-General are satisfied that that immediate threat on a nationally significant scale fails to exist. Now,
Wow.
The question is, if it fails to exist in the Commonwealth, how does it exist within the state?
Absolutely. And again, remember, Section 109 of the Commonwealth Constitution clearly dictates where a law of the state is inconsistent with a law of the Commonwealth, then the latter shall prevail. So if there's no state of emergency, in inverted commas, for the Commonwealth, how can one exist in the states? It just doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, it doesn't, because this declaration was on a nationally significant scale. We're looking at just, I think, Victoria and New South Wales that are having the problem at the moment.
Yep.
But without that declaration, how long can this Ponzi scheme last by Despot Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So these are all things to be aware of. These all work in conjunction with each other. And any single one of these arguments is a killer argument. But you put them all together, okay, and you put those in a document to your employer, they've got nowhere to turn. And look, I'm not having a go at employers. I know we've been contacted by a lot of employers who've said to us, look, Mike, we don't want this vaccine ourselves. We don't want to force it on our employees. What do we do? Well, you equally need to take a stand. And again, if the only thing you're worried about is getting a fine, all of those fines can easily be challenged for all of these legal reasons and arguments that we've outlined in this video. So we all need to start working together and understanding that there is no legal framework for any of this here in Australia at the moment. And that's the important key. And you as an employee need to point this out to your employer. And if you're an employer, these are the questions that you need to be firing back to your local member of parliament, to the chief health officer, to these people who are passing these directives down to you and saying, but hang on, this stuff just doesn't add up. You don't seem to have the legal framework to be able to do this. Can you please explain? Okay, throw it back to them, and as always, ask the questions. Okay, that's the key, is to ask those questions. Now, speaking of questions, we have, as I mentioned just briefly before, been contacted by a whole heap of police officers. I know you've been contacted, we've been emailed, they put it on our Facebook Messenger, and a whole bunch of police officers, and they're, like everybody else, are sort of freaking out, going, but hang on, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want to do. And there's an important point that that police officers, especially over and above anyone else, needs to understand, is that as a general employee, okay, if you're a retail employee or a banking employee or whatever, you have a right of recourse against your employer. Okay, so if they are mandating that you get this jab and then you have some kind of adverse reaction to it, you can go back to your employer and say, well, this is what's happened to me and I require compensation or leave or whatever the case may be. But in the case of police officers, that's not actually the case, because police officers, as per the Baker case from a few years ago, are not actually employed by the government, by the Crown. And this is something that we've been trying to get through to people for years, and they're finally now starting to wake up to, aren't they?
100%. And you can go and have a look at the Public Administration Act of 2004. And the Public Administration Act is where all of the public employees under the government are employed. Section 106 says that the Public Administration Act does not apply to police employees. All public employees are employed under Part 3 of the Public Administration Act. So...
Oh, that's the one I've got. No, hang on, what have I got? I've got the Crown Proceedings Act, Section 23.
Exactly. So
yes.
Section
Now,
23 of the Crown Proceedings Act also evidences this fact. And what it says is that police officers are not servants or agents of the Crown or independent contractors employed by the Crown.
Wow, that's pretty crystal clear, isn't it?
100%. Now, police that have been contacting us, they're concerned because they don't realise what's going on. They are acting under the dictation of the executive government. Police are independent from the government. They are meant to be independent officers of Her Majesty, and they are meant to be there to keep the Queen's peace. They have their own discretion.
Absolutely.
As we've seen many times.
Yes, we have, in certain instances.
Yes. But the police officers out there have to realise that you are being forced to act under the executive government for which you are not imposed. It's not imposed on you to do that, okay? You do not have to follow the executive orders of the government. You just have to follow your duty and to keep the Queen's peace.
Absolutely.
Now, a lot of these police officers are very distraught, and they're wanting, and from what we've seen, is they want to join the people. So please, everyone, when the police come over, you need to accept them with welcoming arms, because that's what we are there for, to welcome our fellow brother police officers, because there are many who are starting to join and to come across to the correct side and to protect what they joined up for, the people.
Absolutely. And again, this is something that I said on a recent video. Now is the time for the police, for the lawyers, for the judges, anyone involved in the administration of justice. Now is the time to take a stand. Now is the time to choose which side you stand on. Okay, come and join us and stop enforcing bad laws. Take a stand for what you know is right. Okay, because if you don't stand for something, as I've said many times before, you'll fall for anything. Okay, now is the time, because if you don't stand now for what you know is right, you're going to get swept up in it all and you're going to fall victim like everybody else. So, as always, hopefully you found this information useful. If you want to go further, if you want to learn more about your rights, please go to Darren's constitutionwatch.com.au website. As I said before, if it's a bit hard to get onto, if it's running a bit slowly, just try again in another 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. Of course, our knowyourrightsgroup.com.au website, you'll find a link in the description. There's tons of free information. All of these live videos are available on our Facebook videos tab or on our BitChute channel to download and watch in case you might have missed any. Don't forget, we have our radio show every Tuesday night between 8 and 10 p.m. And they're completely free to listen to. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can join up as a podcast member. It's about $4 or $5 a week to do that. If you want to go to the next level, don't forget, please, about our Know Your Rights book, the essential step-by-step manual for understanding and exercising your rights. If anyone's worried about any type of fines, traffic fines, COVID fines, anything like that, grab a copy of that Aussie Speeding Fines book. And if people are struggling financially, as I know a lot of you are, make sure you grab a copy of that Bank Secrets Revealed book and learn how to discharge those credit cards, unsecured loans, personal loans, things like that. You can get them individually. There's links in the description. You can get them all together as part of a combo pack, save a little bit of money. Make sure you make use of those if that's of interest to you. And those who really want to take things to the next level, don't forget, of course, our brand new home study course, 2.5-day live event with our 3 custom-made workbooks, our 17 DVDs, and our document CD, which is all of the documents that we actually use ourselves to deal with all this kind of stuff individually. So we are going to wind things up. Obviously, tomorrow night being Tuesday, we do have a live radio show. Again, it's 2 hours long, so we can go into a lot more detail. It's also completely uncensored, so we can say a lot of things that we can't actually say on these videos. So just go to our website, knowyourrightsgroup.com.au, click on the radio show tab, and there'll be a big black listen live button that you can click on, and you'll be able to tune in to us then. Other than that, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you to Darren for all that wonderful research and sharing that information with all of our viewers. I know they will all definitely appreciate it.
No problem, Mike. And next time I come back, we're going to invalidate the office of the Governor of Victoria for you.
Good fun to be had. All right, take it easy, everyone. We'll talk to you on the radio show tomorrow night. Thank you.